Welcome to the Monopoly Mindset, the podcast where we uncover the strategies to build your real estate portfolio one property at a time.
We're your hosts, Tyler and Tommy, here to share our story of playing real-life Monopoly.
Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, this is your go-to resource for mastering the real estate game.
So grab your board, roll the dice, and let's buy Boardwalk together. Welcome back to the Monopoly Mindset Podcast, episode 44. We're finally getting back into our groove, so it feels good to be recording regularly again. And we're excited for today's episode.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun having things to talk about. Like sometimes Ty and I will complain like, oh, our portfolio's boring. We haven't had much going on. And like these weekly pass and go segments haven't been as entertaining as we'd like them to be. And then over the last 2 months, we've had so much work that it's almost prevented us from doing the podcast recording as much because we've been doing a lot more. So it's fun that things are starting to calm down a little bit, but now we can share those stories that kept us so busy, which we think people like to hear about.
Yeah, although on your end, they weren't necessarily good things. It seems to be a few bad things, which we'll discuss a few of them today. But yeah, I guess for myself, I've been busy renovating my bathroom that I talked about a long time ago, and we've been waiting a little bit because it's still going to be pretty expensive just in materials, and I am paying a plumber to do a lot, but I pretty much decided to do most of the work myself. So
when did you make that decision?
When did I make the decision?
Yeah.
I mean, probably a few months ago when I got a couple quotes and realized that just bathroom remodels were more expensive than I was thinking, and didn't feel like paying it. I mean, I'm still gonna pay about half of what the quote was, but I quickly learned that like $20,000 for a bathroom was like relatively cheap for a master bath. I actually just heard, I know somebody that just is getting their master bath done, and granted they're like retired, but it's $60,000 just for their master bath. But anyway, I'm probably gonna spend like 10. So I'm doing all the shower, the tile work, the floor, I mean everything except for I'm having a plumber come out and do a good amount that's kind of unrelated to the bathroom itself. So I got a quote for that, and I was actually pretty happy with it. Surprised, it's like, I don't know. I think typically the quotes are more than you're hoping for. This one was actually less. So long story short, we have well water, and it's like hard and full of like minerals. So, and then on top of that, we have it's called copper M piping. So this is like all stuff that I'm learning since I bought this house that I'm living in now. Copper M is like a thin version of regular copper. So over time, it gets these like little tiny pinholes. It just corrodes. So you combine that with like really hard water that just destroys copper as it is, versus like public is like already filtered and all that. So it's just like a bad combination of over time, your pipes start to leak. It's like our like shower head has like rust residue on it. Our water tastes pretty bad, so like we use a filter for that, which like none of this really bothers me, but I guess it's ruining Danielle's hair. So
It's 100% true. When we lived in Clark Summit, we had really hard water. I don't think we had the same plumbing or piping issue that maybe you're having, which is ironic because I've been having all the issues with pipes recently, and I can't stop laughing at all of the thumbnails you put together of just exploding pipes everywhere, just knowing you're talking about my properties. So it's
that
funny.
wasn't the last two.
So it's funny that it's back on you now. But from the hard water perspective, it was crazy. Like Sarah would just break out in hives like every time she showered because like the water was so hard and her hair was like all messed up. So we ended up going with a company called Culligan, and to my knowledge, they basically put like a F ton of salt in like this big bin, and then the water I think would trickle through the salt and it would like take out the minerals and make it softer, kind of like a water softener. So that's what we
You
did.
like you rented that almost, right? Like, which I've never heard of. That's kind of cool. I wonder if that's for like HVAC and stuff too. I could see that kind of.
Yeah, I tried to tell Danielle to tell you, but I don't know if she explained it correctly. But yeah, it's basically go like your main water line coming in, and then everything filtered after that is just softened. So I did rent the machine, but I don't remember exactly what it cost. I think it might have been like an install fee of like $100 or like maybe 200, but it wasn't crazy. And then it was like $50 a month for like the salt or something. So
Mm.
it really wasn't, and like honestly, they kept giving me way more salt than I even needed. So like I tried like downgrading the salt that was giving, or like postpone it every month or so. But it was relatively cheap, like it, and that's what I thought was the best option versus putting in like a more intricated system that you pay for.
Yeah. Well, we're not. So we're not doing a water softener, but this plumber that I've been working with for the past couple months that's done a few things at my house. I really like him. He's like a younger guy that's I guess starting to like branch off on his own. And he recommended this whole house filter, so it's kind of similar, but it's like he said it's on Amazon. It's like $400, and he said he installs them all the time. And he said like your bang for your buck for $400 is so much more than going to spend 4 grand on a water softener system. So anyway, so I had
So
him
what does
come out.
this? What's this filter do? Does it
It just
also
I guess
filter like your water?
collects like it collects a lot of the like minerals that are in the water when it comes into the house.
So it's going to filter like all of your water versus, so it won't necessarily soften it, but it'll filter all the minerals out of it. So
Yeah.
it'll be like clean drinking water from like all of your sinks.
Yeah, like the stuff that's corroding the pipes, I guess it's like iron or whatever
Mm-hmm.
minerals, and like the stuff that makes the water color and like taste, it basically filters all of that. But I mean, no, it's not a water softener. But again, those from what I hear are like $4 or $5,000, which I'm not going to spend
Yeah,
that.
you
But
might want to look up Culligan and see if that they can also be incorporated, because like that's something you can rent and it's a lot cheaper. But what's the name of the water filter you're getting? And I'm only asking these questions because I've been contemplating getting like a in-house water filtration system or something, because I drink so much water, and like you read so much about the tap water and like what the cities are putting
yeah,
into
you at
your
least have
water.
public though, right?
I do, but they still put so many chemicals in there to keep it clean that it's like, what are you even drinking?
Yeah, I so it's called AO Smith Whole House Water Filter System on Amazon. I can send you the link. But
Yeah, do that.
so so anyway, I had him come out, and there's a few things that I wanted and that I definitely wanted him to do in the bathroom. So like we're moving the diverter, like the where the water comes out from one side to the other. The drain has to move because the base is a different size, and then we're going from like a double vanity to a single vanity, so the pipes for that have to move, and then I actually need to. I'm moving the toilet flange, whatever. So there was like those were like the must-haves that I wanted, and I just went through the rest of the house. I was like, "Can you give me a quote for all this?" And it's basically replacing half of the copper in our house. We're only going to do half for now. We'll come back to the other half later, but replacing half of the copper to PEX, which is like plastic. Which is one, it's going to prevent even more of the rust taste and smell and all that, and then it just will prevent these leaks because we've already had two, but luckily they're in the basement, which like is fine. You can see it just goes on the concrete. But if you have one on the second floor in a wall, you're not going to notice it until water is seeping through your walls or floors. So we're kind of trying to be proactive about that. And then add the filter, and all of that came back pretty reasonable. So we're gonna do that, and then we might do a water heater while he's getting rid of all the pipes in the basement anyway. It would be a good time to do a water heater because our water heater stays hot for like 1.5 showers. So,
Yeah, you guys have too many bedrooms and host too many people to only let
Oh
two
yeah,
people shower.
you're getting like 2 showers max. I guess especially in the winter when it's like freezing. But yeah, I'm doing a lot of things that I've never done before, like replace subfloor, and I've done a bathroom, but it wasn't I didn't have to do as much, at least for the floor last time. And I know you helped me a little bit, so maybe you can come back and help me with this one.
We'll see. I am going up to Maryland here in May, the first week of May, but I'm going for a golf tournament with Dave and some of his buddies, and it's also in like a different part of Maryland. I thought it'd be close to you guys, and I'm like, oh, I'll stay with Ty and Danielle, but it's like an hour or so away, hour and a half, more
You know what
centralized.
city?
I want to say Elkton, but that's you're close to Elkton,
Yeah,
aren't you?
that's where we live. I
Yeah,
don't think
so
it's
it's
Elton.
it's definitely not Elkton. If you give me a second, I'll find it.
But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of been a lot of my free time recently, and kind of all just to sell the house in 2 years. It's, hopefully I'm gonna invest some of this money and time, and I think part of me is like forgetting that I'm spending money on real estate and I'm gonna get it back in whenever we move. If I don't decide to keep it by then, because the plan is to sell, but yeah, never know when the time comes. So that's the goal.
I'm with you. I was actually talking with our friend Danny, that's a realtor here in Florida, the other day, and like we were talking about our property and some of the other properties that have been listed around us and like what the prices are. And we bought our house for 475, and the Florida market scares me. So our house has gone all the way up to like 515 at some points, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Unfortunately, when we bought it, I bought it for 475 and it only appraised for 450. So I had to put an extra $25,000 down at closing that just went to the seller and didn't help me at all, which was very frustrating. So I'm always like hoping that I get more than 475 when I sell it. Not that I'm planning on selling it, and I think this is a house we'd almost keep forever and just have something close to Disney and potentially rent it out on Airbnb if we did move. But the point was, some of these houses are now listed for like 475, and like some prices are dropping. But when you do nice renovations, and this is what Danny said to us, she's like, "Didn't you guys put like a lot of work into your house?" And like sometimes you can see these estimates, and like it'll say, "Oh, your house is losing value, losing value." But Danny
Yeah.
was like, "Your house is easily worth at least like 530 to 540 because we moved in, we put in brand new floors, we put in a fenced in yard for the dogs, we did a brand new kitchen and remodeled all of that. So like we've repainted the entire inside of the house, changed the landscaping, like we've done a lot of little things just to make the house look way better that add a ton of value, but Zillow's not always going to take that into account. Like for example, a house up the street sold for 600,000. They might have done a little bit more than we did, but I think anywhere from like 530 to 550 is probably doable, even though like Zillow is saying it's worth like 468.
Yeah, I actually want to get into that a little bit. So I'm dealing with that right now a little bit. So I'm I would like to say I'm raising the limit on a HELOC that I have. So I thought that if you have a HELOC, at least I've heard that, let's say you do big renovations or like 5 years have gone by and now your loan has been paid down and the house is worth a lot more and you have, say, a lot more equity than when you open the HELOC. So I'm in that situation where I did like a very large renovation and I thought, oh, I can just call the bank, hey, raise my limit, please. And they'll be like, you got it. Here's 50 more $1,000 to your credit limit. And I called, this was like a few months ago now, and they, at least this bank, they're not able to just raise your limit. You literally have to open up a new HELOC, pay off the old HELOC, but the process is essentially as if you don't have one at all. Like I'm going through a new bank loan, which is awful. And so they do this thing where if your house is under 400,000, they don't technically have to send an appraiser out there. So they do this thing called an AVM. I don't even know what it stands for, but it's like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac about appraisal, just virtual. Maybe it's like a I don't know, appraisal virtual something. So it came back like 10,000. It came back like 20 grand more than we bought it for. And I was like, dude, I put like 70 grand into the property, and it came back as a 2-bed, 1-bath when it's really a 2-bed, 2-bath. So just going to your point, they don't know about renovations. So they just see a purchase price, and then they're like, okay, maybe with depreciation, it's gone up 20 grand. But obviously with these virtual appraisals or Zestimates, it has no idea what you've done to the property. But with this AVM thing, it was weird because my Zestimate was like 40 grand more than this AVM. And I was like, dude, that number is like, I don't know. So obviously I'm not using that. You can still get an in-person appraisal if you want. So I have to pay for it. It's like whatever, $500.
$500, yeah.
But basically with the AVM that I got, the virtual appraisal, I wouldn't really be raising my limit much at all. So I wouldn't go through with the HELOC if I had to use that number. So I'm hoping that I can get the appraisal this weekend and it comes back like, I don't need it like super high. I just want it closer to the Zestimate, which was like 250. I'm looking for like 250. The AVM came back 200. And then another thing that this whole process has made me realize, and I've been telling a lot of people about this. I realized yesterday that my least favorite part about real estate is getting documents for the bank. It's so repetitive, and I need AI to do it for me. That's I need to give AI like all my account information, or people, I guess like in the past, people would use VAs, virtual assistants. So if you're not familiar with that, it can be like typically other countries that their minimum wage is a lot lower than ours. And like, I think like India, for example, is a big one. So you can go on these websites, get a VA, you pay them like on a per task basis. So it's like, hey, collect all these documents and you get, I don't know, $10 an hour or whatever. So that's kind of been what a lot of people do for like administrative tasks. Now you have to give them, for bank statements, you have to give them some version of a login. I don't know if you can set up like a, like an assistant login or something, but personally, I think AI is going to replace that like administrative cost for people. The problem is I don't know how to like give it my login information, because it's like the more properties you have, the more stuff that they need. And I don't know how it works when people that have 100 units, because they don't say, give me all your your mortgage statements from 100 properties. But like right now, every time you do anything, it's like I need to go on 5 different mortgage sites, download the statements from the last 2 months from all those sites. I gotta freaking I have to write down all my passwords, go in my phone, look at my passwords, try and figure out which one's which, and it's such a hassle. And then it's like, oh, you need your 401k, your bank statements, your pay stubs, and it's like this. It's the same stuff every single time, but it has to be up to date. So I can't just save my bank statement and use the same one every time, because it has to be for
It's
this
gotta
month.
be recent.
So yeah, like this is not a bottleneck. It's just I hate doing it. And then because I've done it so many times and it's always the same thing, and it gets worse the more properties you have. So again,
But
ChatGPT, let me know how to just give you all my my
I,
information and do it all
I'd be
for me.
curious, like, I keep a lot of my passwords in like a Google Excel sheet, which you've seen because I do that for our property and like all of my real estate related passwords. But I'd be curious, like, if Gemini eventually will be able to, because I think you can save your passwords in there. Like, so maybe Gemini will be able to have little bots that can go in and use the passwords that are already saved in like Google. Like, you have it saved there anyway, so maybe they can log in and complete those tasks. And I have a buddy that's been doing some stuff like that. He's been like creating bots and like having them complete tasks for him, which feels over my head. But essentially, what he was explaining is like, say, if we want to go to dinner tomorrow night, like he'll schedule a bot to go and call and schedule a reservation for him. like tomorrow, which,
Wow.
and then like the bot will report back that like the reservation is confirmed for 6 o'clock tomorrow. So I think we're getting there. I don't know if we're 100% there yet to what you want to get done. I'm with you. I think about this all the time because I absolutely hated dealing with banks. It's like the bane of my existence. When I was dealing with all of my refinance issues, I was going to bank after bank after bank. They would tell me they were going to accept my loans. I would give them all that information, and then they would tell me, "Oh, actually, we don't like doing student rentals." And I'm like, are you kidding me? Imagine doing what you're doing 4 times in a row and just getting rejected. Like, dude, I was freaking pissed. So I think that's another shout out for like Dom at Burr.com is just that their process is so simple. Their paperwork is a lot simple. You might have to do the 401k statements and a couple things, but not nearly as much documentation as an actual bank requires.
Yeah, I mean that's just the big difference between DSCR and conventional, because I'm doing conventional and it's like federal, it's all federal requirements, right? The stuff
Yeah.
that they're asking for. And you have to check federal law boxes basically. And it's just yeah.
But it's like, is a 6.25% rate worth it, or do you just go 6.5 and like refinance everything and just say F these banks?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, a quarter percent, I would go up a quarter percent to not have to deal with it, but like a half, I think you just suck it up and and go the conventional route if you know. But yeah, so if anybody knows how to do what I want with logging into a mortgage account and download my statements on with AI, that would be great. Another thing I've thought about is like in that podcast that I just sent you, that guy's like obsessed with AI.
No, I didn't listen to it
But
yet, so I'm sorry.
no, it's fine. But he was like, I spend a week every single year doing my taxes, meaning just preparing my taxes to give to my CPA. And this guy's like an entrepreneur, millionaire, whatever. So he's in a different boat than us. But even myself, like the past couple months, I've been spending a lot of time like collecting all the expenses, and like it takes a long time just to collect your stuff to give to the CPA. And he was like,
Mhm.
literally, I waste a week every year of my life just doing that, where hopefully we will be at a point where AI could just give us our time back. Like one thing that I think that I've been thinking that would be cool is like give it my expenses for the year and then give it my folder with all my pictures of my receipts and just say, hey, do I have a receipt for every single expense? And hopefully it could be like, you're missing these expenses, So things like that like we do manually today, I think hopefully could save us a lot of time and let us like walk through properties and do the enjoying the stuff that we enjoy.
I'm telling you, I listened to a podcast and somebody was creating a company doing exactly what you said. Maybe it was a dream, but it was basically a company where they went in and they saved all of your passwords to like those types of places. And it was like a secure password storage. And they would go and get all those documents. And I don't know if they were using, you know, somebody in India to kind of like do it on a task basis, but like I thought this guy was creating a company to strictly get that done for you because of how tedious it is to get all those documents.
Yeah, and I mean, some people are like, oh, it seems a little bit scary to give ChatGPT all your passwords, and I'm like, they already have it all. Like my iPhone has every single one of my passwords, and like I don't know, these big companies, if they really wanted my stuff, they have it already. Like I don't know, I think ChatGPT would be pretty secure. I mean, it's and especially Gemini, like Google puts so much money towards protecting your passwords because like that's just a huge part of a tech company's security. So it doesn't really scare me. I think it's an inevitable, to be honest. I think it's very inevitable that uh, all of our information will be in some sort of AI in the future. So just getting all these
I'm with you.
documents
I
is
I
terrible.
think I think AI is going to make things a lot simpler, um, for sure. I mean, even so, talking about the thing that I want to talk about, if you're ready to pivot to some of the issues that I've been having, and I'm
Yeah.
sure this will be the thumbnail of this episode since Ty's just making fun of me nonstop with these thumbnails. But I had probably like one of the worst unravelings of like something that you could go through as a landlord. I've been dealing with that a lot recently, but mold is nothing that you ever want to play around with. It's obviously detrimental to people's health. You want to make sure that you have adequate living spaces for everybody that's at your properties. And I take that responsibility, wholeheartedly. I want to provide really good properties. And so we had some kids go home for break and they were feeling sick when they left, and they went home and they felt much better. And then they came back and they were living in the house again and they weren't feeling very good. And they kind of looked up their symptoms and they felt like their symptoms were related to being exposed to mold, and wasn't super happy, right? Like to learn that. I was like, well, that sucks. I hope that the house doesn't have mold and like we didn't know about it or anything. So we ended up like getting, what we thought was going to be like a mold remediation company to come out and do a walkthrough. Turned out to be the mold remediation company told us that they wouldn't do a walkthrough and that they wanted to send out a mold inspection company, which if anybody is listening to this, don't ever do that, ever. Because the mold inspection company basically came up with like a full-blown report, like I was getting this covered by insurance, which I'm not. I'm paying this out of pocket. And so I have like this like 50-page report of like every single part of my property, like that's absurd. I mean, it's nice to have it, right? Because there was mold, but my point was like a mold remediation company could go in there and see the mold and say, okay, yes, we can remediate this. Because it's all documented by this mold inspection company, and like their only job is go in there and like create as much work as possible. Things that like might not have even been flagged are like flagged now. So I wasn't super happy because I didn't realize that that was
Do
done.
they also offer the remediation service?
No. So I went to a mold remediation guy that was like an acquaintance, that was a friend, and I thought he would come and look at the property. He basically told my property manager that he will not look at the property and that we need to use this mold inspection company. And this mold inspection company came back with a 55-page report, which, in my opinion, I should have never used them. I wanted a mold remediation company to come out and tell me what they would do to remediate the mold that was there. So instead, I have like this massive report and mold in other areas that maybe we didn't know about, which again, I'm happy to get that done. But now that it's all documented by this inspection company, it's just creating a lot more legalities for the other, like, so when I got the mold remediation quote, after the inspection got back and we gave it to the mold remediation guy, he's basically putting it into this automated software that's, again, treating it like it's a person that's using insurance. And we say that using insurance because a lot of contractors, when you're using insurance, will sit there and say, hey, this guy's using insurance. I'm going to charge full price and charge everything possible that's on this inspection sheet because I know the insurance company is going to pay for all of it. And I ended up getting a quote for $45,000 to remediate the mold. And
Did you call your insurance company to see if it was potentially covered?
I did call my insurance company to see if it was potentially covered. Mold is not covered unless if it happened like very quickly. If it shows signs that it could have been there for a long period of time, it wasn't covered. I'm debating adding mold coverage to my policies now based off of this. I don't know, if it's an extra charge or not, but there's just so much dampness and wetness up there that like this is the third time that I've had some mold related issue, and they usually cost anywhere from like $7,000 to $10,000. I think there's a level of proactiveness that I'll get to later that I need to be better at. But yeah, I got a quote for $45,000 to remediate the mold, and I pretty much hit rock bottom. I mean, I was so
Crazy.
nervous, scared, and like again, this was an acquaintance that I thought was doing me a solid, and he was telling me it was 45,000 for his quote, and he said that honestly, it should be a $65,000 to $70,000 job based off the inspection report, and that he was doing me a favor. And so, like,
What did I tell you when you told me all that? You were like, "Oh no, it's a friend. It's a friend." I was like, "Dude, get like two more quotes," which is just proof that like even if it's a friend, get 3, 4 quotes. I
I
would
get
say
it.
unless you're very happy with the first couple.
Yeah, I get it. It was just like again, I'm a trustworthy person. Like I do a lot of things off of trust, and like if I think I have a decent relationship, like this is a person that was referred to me, a referral partner. I've used him in the past. I've networked with him in the past, and I just anticipated he was doing me a solid. Which then I went back to him and said, "Is there anything you can do? Like this feels like an insurance job, and I'm paying out of pocket. Like I am a small business owner, and real estate investors do not make the type of money to make up for a $45,000 expense. Like you almost would just sell a property rather than dealing with
Well,
that."
and you just did close on the property, so all of your proceeds would basically be wiped away, which is awful.
Yeah, pretty much everything that we just made from the sale of 65 East Overbrook would have been used to remediate this, and but without that sale, we definitely would have been screwed. Like we make like you know $20,000. Like that's like 2 years worth of like money. Like it's insane. So anyway, I tried nickel and diming him and saying like, well, what if we get a handyman to do a lot of the demo work? Can we save any money, any costs, and like what can you do? So he comes back and is like, if you do all that, I'll drop it to $30,000. So I'm like, all right. He's giving me a break for that, but then I got to pay probably $5,000 to this other guy to do all the demo work. So I'm like, I'm probably looking at like 35, but it's better than 45. Still distraught. And then this is where, when you were talking about chat, kind of brought me to chat, because I started sending all these scenarios to chat and like sending the quotes to chat, and chat's like, yo, this guy's full of shit. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but what you're looking at is definitely not. Like, yeah, that report says that a lot of stuff needs to be done, and it can all be done for significantly cheaper. I mean, this guy is talking about like cleaning your entire house with a toothbrush. Like it's pretty bad what that first quote was. And so I wanted to get a second quote. Luckily, our property manager had a family member that also does mold remediation, and they gave us a second quote for like $24,000, which I got that, and that like included everything. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm already like $5,000 cheaper, basically $10,000 cheaper, potentially like $20,000 cheaper from the original freaking quote, right?
Yeah.
45 down to 25. I'm like, and maybe I can nickel and dime this guy and say, hey, can I get some of this other stuff done, get the property cleaned out by handyman, maybe save like another $5,000-6,000. So he said, let me think about it. And I think he came back at like $17,000. So like, all right, I'm getting more positive quotes. I'm getting much happier. I'm not as depressed as I was when I first got my original quote. So then the company that I've used 2 other times for mold remediation, each time they've quoted me mold remediation, it's been one number, $7,000. I talked to my realtor. He also used this company. They quoted him $7,000. So Ty, I'm going to let you guess. What do you think the quote was when I sent them to this property?
I think are they like gamblers? They're just addicted to the 777.
I have no idea, but the quote was $7,000. And I'm like, yo, what the, like, how do I go from $45,000 from this original quote to $7,000?
I mean, I'm assuming that they're definitely not doing as much, right?
I don't know. I mean, I sent them the complete inspection report of like what needs to be done, and like for whatever reason, this company just charges a lot less to use their equipment. I mean, they basically just put in like sub-zero equipment that drops the air pressure so the mold can't grow anymore, and then they, spray down and remediate all the mold that's there, and they treat it. So to your point, like they're doing everything that was said needed to be done in the inspection report, but the original guy had like a lot more stuff that he was doing like after. Like I'm telling you, it was almost like he was scrubbing the whole house with a toothbrush like after the mold was treated. Like it was wild. So they met all the specs of what we needed to get done because we sent them the mold inspection report, which again I really wish I didn't have, and I could have just gone to them originally because I had to pay like I think $1,500 for that mold inspection report that caused all these quotes to be much higher than they potentially needed to be. So needless to say, we signed the $7,000 quote immediately, paid them the $3,500 up front. And like with mold, you want to move quick. You don't really want mold in your property, something that's going to be there, for the tenants. You want that out like as soon as you find out about it. So we got booked, I think, 2 weeks after, and the mold company is there now remediating the mold. They have the basement all taped off. They have their equipment in there, so they're getting rid of it as we speak, which is pretty awesome. We'll be happy to get that out of there. And it kind of goes into some of what we were talking about with the heating elements too, like making it like being a little bit proactive and making sure that the heat was on in the basement so we weren't having pipes freezing. I'm gonna go ahead and put like a commercial grade dehumidifier in there that's just gonna run at all times and like drain into the plumbing there, so like it's hands off and just runs. And I think stuff like that's necessary just so you have constant airflow in bigger basements so that the mold can't grow into the basements. And it's catch 22 because like if the kid wants to unplug it because they don't want to pay, the $10 a month it costs to run that, and they think unplug like there's got to be some things like in the leases moving forward, like, hey, you have a commercial grade dehumidifier, you cannot unplug this because this is to prevent mold. If mold grows because you unplug it, you are then responsible for the mold remediation. So it's just documenting that and then trying to be a little bit more proactive. And like we had dehumidifiers in there, they were older, they might not have been working properly, they might have been unplugged, but until things are documented and worded and like you're educating the tenants properly, I think there's only so much that you can do. So, long story short, my nightmare was not nearly as bad, and we're just moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, the unfortunate part though is 7 grand is still a big loss for a property, like if you would have had the dehumidifiers, I guess running, you didn't have them running before, right?
They
Or,
were,
or
but
there were none.
they were running, but they were in like different areas, and I think they would unplug them from time to time, and so But there was also just a lot of windows were maybe cracked or damaged, or there was just some cracks and some window seals, and then they had the garage door. A lot of the same issues that were causing coldness to get into the basement were also allowing moisture into the basement. So there was just
So
a
the same
couple.
same property with the garage and the frozen pipes, and I guess it's kind of been a nightmare. Did the remediation happen yet?
Yeah, they got there I think last week. So I don't know how long they keep it in sub-zero and like get everything out. The property manager's handling a lot of that conversation. I've handled it in the past. He asked if he wanted to handle it this time. I said sure. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but I do know that they got there last week and put their equipment in there.
Cool. Yeah, when you texted me that, I was like, "Oh my goodness, that is," and it didn't make sense to me. Like $45,000 for mold room. I don't know much about mold. I will say that, and I guess it is a big house, right? This house is like 4,000 square feet.
That
But
was something
geez,
else that the guy was telling me that I just have to like harp on because I was so frustrated. I was like, "Yo, this is ridiculous." I'm like, "You're like, why are you telling me that this is what it costs?" Like, well, it's a massive house. It's 4,000 square feet. I'm like, "Yeah, because you add the first floor and the second floor together, but and then the third floor, but you're just doing the basement. So that's only like 2,000 square feet max. Like, what? How are you getting 4,000 square feet when you're just doing the basement? Like."
so is that all that was on the report was the basement? And I guess just like mold being in the basement was enough that I guess the toxins can go up through the rest of the house.
Well, it's actually the report was favorable for the entire house. Like all the living areas did not really have the mold. The problem is the kids spend a lot of time in the basement. They have
Mm.
some couches set up down there, so like all that stuff has been had to get like thrown out because the mold was growing in there. But I think they spent a lot of time in the basement, and that's where the mold was. So that's why they were, um, you know, being sick. Which like to me, I'm like, yo, just chill upstairs. Like, why are you have this massive house with like three living rooms? Like, pick one of them to chill and set up in versus the cold, dingy basement. But
Yeah, to your point though, it's not something you want to mess with. I will say that I think it sounds scarier than it actually is. Like it's not gonna. I'm not saying to leave it, but it's not gonna kill you if you live with mold in your basement for like a month.
yeah, and I
Again, as a
mean,
landlord, you should address it as fast as you can. But like, I think there's also just certain areas. Northeastern PA being one of them, that like mold is kind of inevitable. And you have to run the dehumidifier or whatever in basements. So
So my,
I
my
think you
thought
went
is
about it
like
the right way.
you learn about these dehumidifiers very quickly, but I've gone from having a dehumidifier that is supposed to drain, right? The automatic drain ones like always break after like
The
6 months
pump.
to a year. Yeah, the pump. The pump always effing breaks. And it's
Mine's
so
good so far.
well, congratulations. It's gonna break immediately. So I then thought I was smart and I was like, oh, I'll just jack up all these dehumidifiers on like a stand and then I'll put a hose to the back of them and they'll just drain automatically into the plumbing, which, just using gravity to my advantage there. And that worked for most properties. But then like you run into scenarios where like there's nowhere to drain them, like, and you can't really raise them. And plus like just the traditional grade ones that you buy at Lowe's and Walmart are okay. But if you buy these big commercial grade ones that are hung from like the ceiling and then they just drain directly into some sort of plumbing and it's like professionally done, they're more expensive, like almost closer to $1,000. But you put one of those bad boys in your basement and like you will have zero moisture. It just moves all of the air or moves all the moisture out and drains it. And so I think that's something that I've debated putting in a lot of my properties. I got a quote from this company that's doing the mold remediation. They charge like 2,500 to 3 grand to put those in. I know another guy that I've been told does them for like $1,000, my HVAC guy. So I'm probably gonna have him put one in there and not the mold remediation company. It might not be like, again, the mold guys will tell you, oh, up to our standards, you need 2 or 3 of them in these different areas. Like, I'm just going to be content with, putting one in there to really help remediate it. And the other thing that you brought up was the mold only in the basement. We did have some mold in the attic from an old roof leak. The insulation had a little bit of mold in it because it was damp up there for whenever the roof before we replaced it. So we do have to just rip out all the insulation upstairs and then install new insulation, which is a much easier job.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm glad you got it all figured out. I think it's worth putting in those, even if it's $2,000 to prevent a potential $7,000 to $45,000 expense in the future. But one thing that's interesting is people talk about a buy box a lot, like, and they say it's really important to know your buy box. Like you have a realtor or wholesaler, and they're like, "What are you looking for?" A house in northeastern PA is not good enough, right? You want it, and I think my whole point is like you learn your buy box from things like this. It's like basements just seem to be a problem. In northeastern PA, the pipes freeze in the winter. So it's like I think just with experience, your buy box gets smaller and smaller. Like, okay, I don't want basements. Maybe I'm gonna invest down south. And your buy box becomes like I want a 3-bed, 2-bath house without a basement in North Carolina. And it's like these things that we're learning, and just like you kind of just have to go through them from experience, right? You can't like look up every single thing that's going to go wrong before you buy a house. And so over time, these things just kind of help you narrow down your buy box and buy the most efficient properties based on expenses like this. Not saying that you're never going to buy a basement again, but I've definitely had that thought, because for me it's not mold, and I guess it's the same thing, but water. It's just like water always seems to make its way into a basement, which I guess then actually is the cause of the mold. So it's the same idea, but yeah, I'm kind of over basements.
So
At least,
it's tough to eliminate basements, but I've definitely gone away from bedrooms in the basement because I don't want to put kids living there where there's the potential of the water that turns into the mold. And plus, like if the water gets in, like, and you don't have livable materials, then the mold doesn't have anything to grow on. But like when you have a kid's bed and like all these other things, like the mold can start to develop and it can just stay damp in there and whatnot. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. So I've really tried to sell and get away. Like that was one of the main reasons we sold 65 East Overbrook, because there was a bedroom in that basement and it was getting water. And that makes it a little bit more annoying. Real quick, with 99 North Pioneer, it's really funny. So that was one of the properties that had like a mold remediation that was like ended up being $7,000 to $10,000. And we basically decided to remove like all livable materials that mold could grow on from the basement. So it's basically just like the concrete floor at this point. And we removed like all the subfloor and like everything. And I was up in Dallas a couple weeks ago, or maybe Casey was there, property manager, and I had him go there and FaceTime me. And like we thought that we would have this issue with water all the time because dude, the basement is massive and could easily be like a complete finished renovated apartment. It's got separate access, and I was like, "Yo, this is a steal. I'm gonna renovate this basement." And it used to be a bit like it used to be like a whole studio. So I was debating doing that. And I didn't because of this water issue and the mold issue that we were dealing with. When Casey went down there, and it probably should have been very damp or like maybe had some water, and I wanted to see if like the dehumidifier was even plugged in. Looks like we forgot to plug in the dehumidifier, and the basement was dry as heck. No water, no mold, no nothing. And I'm like, damn, do we just finish this basement now?
I wonder why though in the past. I think this was like it was when you first bought the property, right? Why
I'm
it would have
curious.
mold then?
I'm curious if so. Part of the issue with the house is the foundation wasn't great, so it was like sinking, and they went and had another company come in and like raise this part of it right before they sold it. I'm curious if like when they ripped up all that foundation, like how open it was, and if water got in there over time, like more water than maybe normal, and that caused the immediate mold issues that we experienced when we bought the property that we had to remediate because it's been a year and there's like no issues of mold or anything. Granted, like the materials aren't there, but again, if you put a commercial grade dehumidifier in there, it should really move that airflow and potentially give us something that we could refinish because it was a finished space at some point in time. So
Yeah. Well, I would probably look into getting the dehumidifiers. I think that's a good idea. But maybe there's some way that like you can't turn it off because I've even my tenants texted me and said like, "Hey, should I run this dehumidifier?" Because they don't. Nobody. I think people assume they they cost like $300 a month in electricity, and everyone's like, "I don't want to pay for the electricity." And it's like, yeah, better
I
than
don't know
mold.
what I don't know what to do about that specific issue. Like, do you just give the tenants like a $20 credit or something and say like, "Yo, run the effing dehumidifier," or like I just don't know.
Yeah, I think you could do something like that. Is like, hey, I will pay for the dehumidifier, but like keep it on.
Yeah.
Because it is
So
like it's not your fault that it's required, but it's not their fault per se either, you know.
yeah, it's just tricky. I mean, I look at it as like you pay utilities. That's something that's got to be ran. You don't run it, like sure, that's fine, but this $7,000 mold is now on you. So which one would you
Yeah, but
rather?
that's never gonna happen, obviously. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think college kids in particular are more like nitpicky about like the electric, right? Like I typically don't have like I shouldn't be paying for this dehumidifier being on, but I mean in college you don't have, as much money, so I get it.
Yeah, I'm also curious, like to your point with like AI and like I don't know. I have trust issues with tenants to some extent. Like, do you hook up to the Wi-Fi and like have some sort of like plug that can like tell you if something's on? You know what I mean? Like a smart plug and like just make sure that it's running or whatever. I don't know. Like I know you can do
Yeah.
certain things like with water too. Like you can hook up like water bugs to all your properties and like be notified immediately if like water is coming out. So
hmm
something like that, but to make sure that your dehumidifiers are running.
Yeah, I don't know. Or I guess you have your property management make sure. I don't know. It's tricky, but all right. So that's pretty much everything we have for today. I'm going to the Poconos tomorrow to stay there for the weekend and see my buddy that lives out in Vegas and his new son. So I'm excited about that. Um, but yeah, next week we have some more exciting stuff to talk about. A couple refinances that you've discussed a lot in the past that finally went through. So
Yeah, I'm
big news for you.
excited that I finally got that off my plate. Been talking about these refinances forever. we teased a little bit that the appraisals came back relatively favorable, and then it was just going through the rest of the process, which we did get completed. So we can talk through those refinances, where those properties are at now, next week, and kind of go from there. So it'll be exciting. It'll be nice. It'll be another little pass and go segment, just getting you guys updated on our portfolio, where we've been the last 3 months, why we've been so busy. And then we'll look forward to starting to get some more guests on here soon.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
See you next week.